So we're coming up the ranks. So we've started off right at the bottom. We've come up now into our B2 level. So what about our higher level learners? What can we do with them, and how can we help them to take their language to the next level? So this is a very typical example now of an activity. So I wanted to show you something a bit more concrete of how we can exploit all the words on the page as well. And this is something I've always been very passionate about as a teacher, and I think more so as a trainer. So if you're going to write something on the board, so whether you have a chalkboard or a whiteboard, or you're typing onto a digital board, okay, if you're going to put something on the board, use it. Which also means don't put something on the board that you're not going to use, which I know it sounds silly to mention, but I remember, so when I did my teacher training, which was a little bit before the day before yesterday, but I remember board work, having like a whole module on board work, on how to use the board. And I personally, as a student through school, always had really awful handwriting. So I was always terrified of board work lessons. And actually, I write much more neatly on a board than I still do on a piece of paper. But this whole thing also, now that we have all these digital resources, so it doesn't matter what digital resources you're using. This is obviously one of ours for example purposes. But if you're going to present something through any form of digital platform, you've got so much wonderful language here on the page. So let's just say you give this task and you're doing this with your students, and we have a look at the correct answers, and here we have the correct answers. So anyone who wants to come on the trip to the zoo should inform me by Friday. But there will be a case where not everybody says anybody, and maybe somebody chooses something else. So what if we use all? What if we use some? What if we use the most or most of instead of most? So what happens, and what can we do when they get it wrong on the page? And when students get it wrong on the page, then this is a wonderful opportunity to say, well, in this current form, it is anybody who wants to come. But why did you choose all? And what happens if we choose all? And this is a really excellent example, because it's quite possible that the students heard all who want to come, all who want to, all who wish to, all who would like to. This is very, very common language, but it's formal. It's much more. Also, this question about formal, informal, but it's much more formal, and it's a polite form of saying anyone, anybody, or anyone who wants to come. So you will quite often hear this with announcements, or you might see this on promotional leaflets or things. So all who want to come, and the S is removed. So it's quite possible that they've just not heard that there is no S there, third person S. So this is what they've heard. So again, is it wrong if they say all instead of anybody? And then the same with the next one. What if someone chooses most of? Well, here we have to add something in to make this correct. So most of the people here, for example, most of the people there, most of the people I know. Okay, and the same here with the last one. You, yourself. So if we remember, here we say there's more than one opportunity. So the correct answer is one can learn a great deal, or you can learn a great deal. But someone chooses you and yourself. Well, this is perfect construct to say you yourself can learn a great deal if the function is that the person we are talking to is a bit of a know-all about something, or is a bit arrogant about something, and they pretend they know a lot about marine creatures, but they actually don't. And they've actually never visited an aquarium. And this is the situation where we would say, you know what? You yourself can learn a great deal about marine creatures. And it's quite possible, particularly at high levels, that that our students have come across this kind of language and they've heard it or seen it somewhere. And so when they come to do activities like this, again, that question of why do you think this is the right answer? And then we all know this when it comes to language, and it's not just the English language, it's every language. It's very, very rare that there's only ever one correct response. Okay, so I would ask you, would like you to, I think it would be a wonderful thing for you to do, is to have a look when you are presenting. So whether you're doing this, projecting this up onto a wall and you're using digital materials, if they're working from books, and if they are working from books, then use your digital materials, if you have them there, to do the feedback and the error correction. So when you are in a situation where the answers are anything other than correct here, then please spend some time doing this kind of work with your students, particularly at high levels, because this really helps them to make sense of how the language works and how the language is used in various contexts. So if we just have a look at this one, Fran has been acting strangely lately. She doesn't seem to be, and someone says, by herself. Then there's lots of questions to ask. Why would you say that? Oh, because I know that Fran lives alone. Maybe that's what came up in the text, that Fran lives alone. And you know, she wasn't talking the way in which she normally does, or we had a telephone call and conversation, and the way in which she was speaking, it seemed like somebody else was in the house. Okay, so by asking these questions, you actually engage your students in a higher level of communication, because it gives them an opportunity to explain their answers and to explain their choices. And the minute we ask them to explain something, we're inviting more emergent language that we can then deal with, correct, or praise them for, and we have greater opportunities to take their language to the next level and help them function in the way that they need to in the English language.